going on, everybody? As the title suggests, this is a discussion on Couture versus James Toney. I'm doing this video ahead of my MMA Corner video because I won't be able to get this video done this weekend if I don't do it now. I got finals on Monday. I got to bust this out now. Plus, I really want to talk about it, so I'll apologize ahead of time. I very rarely ever drink on camera, as far as whether it be wine or Fanta or eat, which is a bag of chips. I'll refrain from eating, but I may take a sip of my drink from time to time, so I apologize ahead of time for that. Well, so we find out as of last night, during all the craziness that happened in Bellator. Good night of fights. If you didn't get a chance to see that, make sure you check that out. This pops up. I was checking my Twitter. I was updating Twitter last night before I went to bed, and MMA Junkie pops up with Randy Couture versus James Toney at UFC 118. Didn't know what to say at first because, I'll be honest with you, and I'm going to talk about a couple things about James Toney real quick. I thought this fight possibly could happen, but I didn't want to believe that it would happen. I didn't want to think that it would possibly happen, and I'll tell you why I thought that it might happen. I thought that James Toney would get a guy like Anthony Hardonk out of the gate, you know? Somebody that was a lower-level guy, that wasn't a name, that wasn't a top-tier fighter in any of the divisions, whether it be the light heavyweight division or the heavyweight division, depending on where he fights at. I didn't think that this would happen. Now, just a little backstory on James Toney. If you don't know who James Toney is, he comes from boxing. He's a very, very talented heavyweight. And he approached Dana White after UFC 109 and wanted to fight with the UFC and wanted to put some fights on. Now, I got messages today from people asking, what is James Toney's motivation in the UFC? Well, I'll tell you. There's two things. One, he wants to prove that he's better than everybody. He's always been like that, whether it's been in boxing or anything. If you watch any of his video blogs, you can kind of tell that right off the bat. Plus, he's a charismatic character. I compare him to the way that he runs his mouth and he talks, kind of like Chad Johnson from the NFL. He's got that same type of banter about him. The second thing is, James Toney's after a payday. He wants to go where the money's at. And right now, mixed martial arts is starting to turn into a budding cash cow. So, he wants to go where the money's at. So, he approaches Dana. Dana wasn't really interested at first. Then, after things went down, Dana signs him and gets him into the UFC. And then Dana later comes out and says, I don't know really what I was thinking. It was really, I've always said I don't want freak shows, and I don't, like freak shows, and now here I am doing this. And I really don't know what to do with them. Now, the reason that I thought that this fight may happen, and you probably asked yourself that, why did you really think that this fight was going to happen? Two things. Number one, James Toney, due to his age, due to his presence primarily in boxing and not in mixed martial arts, it'd be very, very hard to clear him for a lot of fights in MMA. So, primarily they're going to look for guys that are older. They're going to look at guys that are, roughly around the same build or, scale as him as far as athleticism, because they're not going to clear him to get put into a fight where he's going to be absolutely, I don't know what word you want me to use here, but completely annihilated and possibly hurt, or not being able to handle, the stress of a higher level fighter than where he is at right now currently in mixed martial arts. Same thing happened with Herschel Walker. They were throwing opponents around and had to find one that would be okay, that the commission would, approve before his fight. So, you have a similar situation with James Toney here, where it's hard to find an opponent, which is why Dana's been having a hard time matching him up with somebody. The second issue is all money-driven. Because I guarantee you when James Toney signed whatever deal he signed, that there is a specific amount of money. We don't know what the contract is. We don't know how it was written. But he's going to be making some money. And the UFC in order to pay James Toney, is going to have to find a big name that will suck MMA fans in as well as boxing fans to watch the pay-per-view, and Randy Couture is it. So, like I said, I thought that this fight may happen, but I didn't want to believe it, and I didn't think that it would happen, but here we are. I'm not going to get into who beats who. I'm going to save that for a predictions video, and, you know, realistically, I won't say that. I won't say that. I'll just save that prediction for another day. But, you know, just this coming out, you know, I'm not going to lie, I was just like, wow, really? Oh, dear Lord. It did come out. There you go. Well, I said it anyways. Oh, dear Lord. Now, you can take that as you will. Most of you will figure out what that oh, dear Lord means. We'll see what happens. We'll see whether or not that this fight actually materializes, because right now it hasn't been officially signed, but, you know, both guys are saying that this fight is in the works and they are trying to sign it, and that it is slotted for UFC 118, so it should be very, very interesting to see how this all plays out. I'll do an update video, should more things come out about this, but very, very interesting. Like I said, I didn't think that Randy was going to be the guy that James Toney got right out of the gate. I honestly thought it would be a lower level guy, but again, when you look at all of the things that play into what I just talked about, the fact that it's hard to match Toney up with somebody and be able to clear the Athletic Commission's regulations, and to find somebody that's going to be able to draw pay-per-view numbers to pay James Toney the amount of money he's going to want to be paid, it makes sense. It makes sense why they're making this fight. So on that end of it, I understand. You know, and this whole, you know, and this is the only thing that I didn't like about this happening. I know that it makes interesting stories. I know that James Toney is going to bring newer fans into mixed martial arts, but it's going to start dredging up what's kind of been a little dormant as of late, but the boxing versus MMA debate. There's been a lot of the more diehard boxing fans and even casual boxing fans that have been more receptive towards MMA, and it's retrospectively the same way. You know, more MMA fans have been, more diehard MMA fans have been more open towards boxing and different boxing things. Just like, you know, I've been talking to a lot of my friends recently about, you know, I'm definitely going to try to order Mosley versus Mayweather. I want to see that fight. You know, there's a lot of give and take on both sides, and it's been, you know, pretty nice as of late. But now this is going to start up again. We're going to hear the MMA versus boxing chatter, and it's going to heat up all the way until the fight happens. It's going to be, I think some of it will be, you know, media hype-wise, it'll be interesting, and it probably won't be too negative on either side, but the fans are just going to be on both sides. And I'm talking about MMA fans too, because it happens, and I've seen it, and don't condone it, because they're two totally different sports and should be treated that way. Regardless of whether you're an MMA fan or a boxing fan, fans just take it way out of control with some of the banter and the talk. So that's the only thing I didn't like about hearing James Toney getting signed to the UFC, and then, of course, Dana. You know, Dana's Dana. I don't agree with him. I don't agree with the way he treats fighters, never have, never will. And then, you know, running his mouth about, oh, I'll never have a freak show fighter, I'll never bring somebody in that, you know, I consider not a top MMA athlete. Well, yeah. So, this should be very, very interesting. If you didn't hear about this, I'll put the link in the description side so you can go read the article about the possibility of this fight happening. Wow. Crazy stuff. Man. I don't know what else to say. You guys, take it easy.
Looking back at me.